Hello and good evening. Welcome all to the annual Sophia Nobel Oration Lecture in Economics. The Nobel Prize in Economic Science for the year 2020 was awarded jointly to Paul Milgram and Robert Wilson for their work on auction theory. Today, on behalf of the Department of Economics, Sophia College, I would like to welcome all for this event. Our distinguished speaker for today's event is Dr. Ajit Karnik, Professor of Economics in Middlesex University, Dubai. Sir, a very warm welcome to you. It is indeed our privilege to have you with us today. I also welcome our respected principal, Dr. Sister Ananda Amritmahal, who has been a constant source of support and encouragement in the conduct of this online Nobel Oration Series. I now invite our principal, Sister Ananda, to begin today's event by addressing the audience. Sister Ananda.
Thank you so much, Professor Sangeeta. Good evening, everybody, and a very, very warm welcome to this final round of our Nobel Oration series. This year, for the first time, we have been able to have an oration, a speech about each one of the Nobel Prizes that has been awarded. And this makes a very unique and special event because 19 years ago, when this entire idea was launched for the first time, of having somebody come in and talk about the Nobel Prize winning uh, area in one or other of the sciences. It was specifically related to the sciences. In fact, specifically started by the life science department, and they talked about the Nobel Prize in medicine and in biological sciences. Over the years, the scope of this Nobel oration has expanded, and today, this year, for the first time, we've been able to engage our students in an exploration of the Nobel Prize winning achievements in each of the various domains that has been awarded a prize. It brings, I think, great joy to us, and it also opens our minds to the cutting edge of the frontiers, as it were, of academic discovery and exploration in every possible domain. We're particularly grateful to all the experts who have come in here for this Nobel Oration series and have been able to, in very simple terms, explain what this new idea is about so that in a manner in which our students can engage with it, can understand it, and integrate it into their own body of learning. The last of our experts, Professor Karnik, Dr. Karnik, who is Professor of Economics at the Middlesex University in Dubai, has honored us with his presence today, and we're very grateful to you, Dr. Karnik, for being with us. And I know, as I said earlier, that our students are going to benefit greatly from all that you're going to be sharing with them. I don't want to take up any more time, but I do want to take this moment to thank all the departments that have been involved, and most important of all, to thank the team that has been working at every one of these orations to make it possible to conduct this series even in a time of the pandemic and the fact that everything is only online. In fact, that has, in a way, expanded our own horizons because we've been able to tap into the expertise of people from different parts of the world. And we've also been able to have participants who are coming in and listening to this program from all over the world. So, I want to say thank you to all of you and hand back the conduct of this particular session to Professor Dubey. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Ananda, for your kind words. Now I call upon Proma to introduce our distinguished speaker for today's evening.
A very good evening to all of you. I am Proma Padyapadhyay, the class representative of economics. It is my great honor and pleasure to introduce our guest speaker for today, Professor Dr. Karnik. Sir is credited with several publications in refereed journals, some of them being Applied Economics, Journal of Sports Economics, authored several books and articles, and has also edited them. He is currently engaged as Professor of Economics at Middlesex University in Dubai. Ever since he received his PhD in economics in 1985 from the University of Mumbai, success has only chased him. Over the time, he has served and consulted in various esteemed organizations like the United Nations Development Programme, World Bank, Unilever India, and Government of Maharashtra. The brilliant minds research specialized in various fields, few of them being political economy and fiscal economy. His passionate dedication for the subject has earned him many awards and has brought him various fellowships from the most prestigious universities, like the University of Texas, University of California at Berkeley, and the most frequently visited one being the Cambridge University. It is nearly impossible to mention all his achievements as the list is too long. Today, we are indeed privileged to have such an outstanding professor and mentor amongst us who will be talking on the Nobel Prize awarded topic of improvements to auction theory and inventions of new auction formats. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further delay, I now invite our esteemed speaker, Professor Karnik, to deliver his talk. Thank you.
Madam Principal, Professor Dubey, faculty members and students, thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. I hope I live up to all that you have said. Thank you very much for inviting me for this lecture on the Nobel Prize winners. All right. So let me launch off straight away. I'm going to share my screen and show you my presentation. Okay. Do let me know if my screen is visible or especially if it is not visible.
It's visible, sir.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay. The economics Nobel is given for fundamental contributions in different areas of economics. Auction theory is one such, and the latest Nobel Prize winners are not the first to win for contributions in auction theory. All right. I will mention at least one more individual who has received an award for contributions to auctions design as we go along. So let me start off by a basic question. Why auctions? All right. Why do we conduct auctions at all? Economics proposes and it reflects the reality. There are a variety of mechanisms to determine the price of a good and to carry out a transaction. A transaction is just a longish word for the simple act of buying and selling. All right. Without a price, a transaction would not be possible. So the seller quotes a price, the buyer examines the price, examines the quality of the good. If it is acceptable, a transaction takes place and the price is paid. Okay. In retail shops or even on Amazon, prices are listed and you can do very little to change the price. Okay. But there is no ambiguity out there. You click on something and you know that the price that has been set for it. Likewise, in most retail shops. Alternatively, one can go to a bazaar where the prices are not necessarily listed and there is a process of negotiations that will take place. All right. The seller proposes a price, you counter with something else, and through a process of give and take, haggling, and so on, hopefully one arrives at a price or the buyer walks away. All right. In this process of haggling and negotiations, there is what we might call an asymmetric information problem. We believe, as buyers that the seller knows something more about the quality of the product than we do. And of course, we don't want to pay than absolutely necessary. All right. At some point in this haggling process, we may come to an agreement and the transaction take place. So this is the way in which prices are understood. Okay. However, there are areas where we may not know the price. So the auctions are a process of price discovery. So, for example, how do we know the price of a Picasso or a M.F. Hussein painting? Or indeed, during the IPL auctions, cricketers are sold to franchises. How do we know the price of a player like Virat Kohli at IPL auctions? Even Kohli himself would not be able to tell you how much he is worth. There is similarly, the price is given out for a contract for garbage removal in Mumbai. How does one know at what price that contract is to be negotiated? All right. There are no typical price labels on an M.F. Hussein or a Picasso or indeed on Virat Kohli's India jersey. All right. And yet we know that a transaction does take place. And this is where auctions come into the picture. All right. So an auction is a mechanism whose purpose is the allocation of goods, meaning at the end of the transaction, we know who has won the good or which franchise has won a particular cricketer for the IPL. So that is the purpose, allocation of the good and the discovery of price. And the price is discovered through a process known as bidding. So individuals, buyers will volunteer the price that they're willing to pay. All right. And numerous individuals would do that. And according to the auction rules, a winner is decided. All right. So auctions are required when the price of any good that is being sold is unknown. It needs to be discovered. And that is where one volunteers, gets bidders to volunteer their willingness to pay. In a market, in a shop, by agreeing to pay the price, we exhibit our willingness. We volunteer the price that is being offered. All right. But in an auction, one has to do something in order to indicate our willingness to buy the product. History of auctions goes back quite a long time. In ancient Babylon, there has been records of auctions. The Roman Empire has creditors regularly using auctions to sell off assets that were confiscated from those who could not pay back their debts. Rather odiously, there were auctions of slaves in ancient times, and indeed, not too far back, just a few hundred years back in the United States. Okay, so auctions have been used. It's got a long history, and the oldest surviving auction house is in Sweden, as this photograph in the lower part of my slide indicates. Right. So auctions are not new. They have been used for whatever is required to get prices to be revealed. So here is an illustrative list of where auctions are used for commodities such as fish, fresh flowers, rough diamonds, to auction of government bonds, rights to timber, minerals, etc. And I have mentioned the IPL. What you have in this picture is the prices from the latest auction that took place a short time back. All right. As you can see, the auction in this particular picture on the right, there is the name of the product which is being auctioned. Here it's a human being, it's a player. There is a minimum price that has been set by the auctioneer. that is the point at which bidding will start. So, for example, someone like Chris Morris has a base price of 75 lakh of rupees. At this point, the auctioneer, someone who is conducting the auction, will ask for bids. Individuals should offer. So someone might come out with 76 lakh, all right? It has to be above the base price. And through a process of competitive bidding, at some point, by the rules of the auction, Chris Morris gets sold to some team. In this case, it seems to be the Rajasthan Royals. The price is at 16.25 crore. As you can see, it's many multiples of the starting base price. Okay. So this is what auctions consist of. There is a product which is made known. There is possibly a starting price. And in this particular auction, the format was that individuals keep bidding higher and higher above the base price. So it's bidding up, all right? And at some point, there is nobody to go match the bid of 16.25 crores. Nobody goes higher than that, and the product is sold. Okay? So that's variety of auctions that take place. Auctions differ in two main respects. One is the format, and the other is the kind of information that is available for the bidders to make their decisions. The format includes the following: how will the prices be announced? Okay. It's not as straightforward as it seems. The IPL is just one form of auctions where bidders shout out their prices. How participants will place the bids? How will they make their bid known to the auctioneer? How are the prices going to be updated? All right. When a new bid comes along, how is that taken forward? Finally, at what point does the auction close, and how the winners are announced? Okay. So the format and the information are both extremely important aspects in characterizing an auction. So the information part, I will look at the format in a bit. The information part is concerned with what do the participants to the auction, the bidders, what do they know about the value of the product that is being auctioned? Do they have information beyond just looking at it? Do they read up about it? And so on. We make a distinction between two kinds of information. All right. One is a bidder's own personal idiosyncratic valuation of the object. All right. This is my private value. It's something that comes out of my mind. It's something that I work through. I might imagine it. I might rationalize it, but it is internal to myself. So that's my personal idiosyncratic valuation of the object. The second would be information that is commonly known to others as well, and the bids that others make reveal their understanding of the object. So when I announce I am bidding, say, 5,000 rupees for something, I'm conveying to the others that that is my valuation. So what was my private information, or at least a part of it, becomes known to everybody and becomes part of common value component. All right. So common value components are those that are known to all. Private value component is one that is known only to the bidder, who may or may not choose to reveal it. As far as the format of the auctions are concerned, we make a distinction between two main types. One is known as the English auction. The English auction consists of people loudly and openly declaring their bids. And these bids keep going higher and higher until nobody submits a higher bid. In which case, at that point, whoever has the highest bid wins the product, wins the auction object. All right. As a graphic of it, you can see it on the right hand side, the English auction. It goes to the individual who bid the highest. All right. So the English auction is the one that is most commonly known. But there is a Dutch auction, which is often used in auctioning of flowers, which goes in the opposite direction. The auctioneer starts with a very high bid or a high price, because it's not a bid technically as yet, starts with a very high price and see who volunteers to buy the product at that price. If nobody volunteers, the price is lowered. All right. So in the picture on the right hand side, the auctioneer starts off at 100,000. Nobody volunteers. The price is brought down to 50,000, to 40,000, to 30,000. The prices will keep declining till at some point somebody raises his or her hand and says, "I'll buy it." All right. And the item goes to the individual who has announced that he or she is willing to buy it. So the English auction, the bids go upwards. In the Dutch auction, the prices go downwards. All right. But both English and Dutch auctions have open bids. People know what you're bidding, and that starts to convey information to the other bidders. There are other auctions where you can submit a closed bid. Put your bid inside an envelope, seal it off, and give it to the auctioneer. The auctioneer will then open it, and then if it's the highest bidder wins type of an auction, the individual will get it. All right. The difference between the open and the closed bids auction is that in the closed bids, information doesn't get revealed. All right. But in the open auction, other bidders know what I'm willing to pay for the product. Okay. Right. So the bid is based on what one is willing to pay for the object, and possibly no outside information is necessarily included in this. All right. You can learn something about what the others are doing, but no further information is given. All right. So the common part of it is very limited. It is dominated by the private information. All right. So there is a possibility in these kinds of auctions for the bidder to end up paying too much. All right. I might want a product quite badly. I start off bidding for it. I might get into a competition with somebody else, and I keep upping my bid and I win the item, but I might find that I have paid slightly more than I should have. All right. So I have in my mind the true worth of the item, but I end up paying more. And this situation is known as the winner's curse. All right. I win the object, but I have got the object at a much higher price than I had intended. So the winner's curse is where you win, but you are cursed with having to pay a substantially high price. The first individual to win a Nobel for auction, by the way, the Nobel Prize in Economics started in the mid 70s. So we are talking about 1996, was William Vickrey. And he put forward in a very important paper sometime, I think it was 1961, where he spoke about auctions, and he spoke about winner's curse, and proposed a way of overcoming the winner's curse. All right. So William Vickrey is an important name. It's rather a tragic coincidence that he got the Nobel Prize and unfortunately passed away just a few months after, or maybe it was even just a few weeks after he got the Nobel Prize. But he was the first in auctions to win the Nobel Prize. The Vickery solution to the winner's curse is quite clever. Let me state it first. It's also called the second price auction. So the highest bidder wins the item, yes, but pays only the second highest bid, which seems a bit strange, right? So if you look at the picture in this on the right hand side, you will notice that the auctioneer, the one in green, light green, says that the individual in purple who has bid $250 will win the object, but the price that the person in purple will pay will not be 250 but will be 200, which is the price of the second highest bid. All right, what's the logic behind the second highest bid is to be paid, and what's the why it's is it the second price auction? Well, what this does is individuals are forced in some ways to be honest. Suppose, for example, I want to win and the object very badly. If I start to bid excessively more than what I believe the object is of value to me, it's possible that others might do the same. So everybody starts to push up the bids substantially, and I will win the object eventually. But because the others have behaved exactly like me, even the second price might be too high. And compared to my value, I end up paying more even at the second price. All right. So it acts as a dampener of bidding excessively high. At the other end, if I bid excessively low, someone else might win the object. All right. So Vickery's argument was that individuals are compelled by this approach to reveal their true valuation. All right. Honestly reveal what they truly believe is the value of the product. So honest bidding emerges, and strange as it may sound, honesty turns out to be the best policy. All right. So Vickery had an ingenious, interesting solution to the winner's curse situation. Okay. Where Vickery's work didn't go as far was that he analyzed it only in the context of what is called independent private values models, meaning I have a value for the product in my mind, others have it likewise in their mind. I know exactly how much I value the product, but even if I find out what the others are valuing it, I don't change my valuation. In that sense, it is independent private values model. All right. So by and large, the bidding is driven by my own interest in the object, how much I yearn for it, how much I would want it. And this depends to a great extent on my very personal tastes, preferences, and so on. So, how much joy would I get to see a priceless painting on my wall of my living room every day? Others do not know about that. They don't know how much joy I am going to get. I probably do. At least I know it better than the others. So, it's a completely private values driven type of an auction that Vickery had studied and put forward a solution for. But as we indicated a little while earlier, that very often values are interdependent. I have a value in my mind, but when I see others bidding very aggressively, I start to wonder whether I'm not undervaluing my product, my the object that I want. All right. Because let's say I'm planning to buy a painting, not to admire it for the rest of my life on the wall of my living room, but I plan to uh, win it at the auction and then resell it to somebody else. And of course, I want to sell it at a profit. So if I have a relatively low bid for that object and I see others bidding very high, I start to wonder whether the resale price of it, when I decide to sell it again, is not substantially higher than what I had imagined. And then the others' bids start to affect my valuation. And it's in this sense, it becomes interdependent. So common value is information known to all bidders, which is coming out of other people's bids. I start to get affected by it. So there is an interdependence. And there could be other information that is publicly available or made available at the auction. So, for example, if I'm bidding for a mine and there are minerals deep inside the mine, I might have some own information about it. I might hire some scientists to give me some estimate of what is the value of the minerals down below. Themselves might come forward and say, our study, excuse me, the auctioneers might come forward and make available a document which gives the whole details about the mine being auctioned. That again is common value. Everybody gets to read that document. All right. So common values models start to move away from Vickery, and this is where the contribution of Robert Wilson, one of the Nobel Prize winners, comes into the picture. All right, he was the first to provide a neat solution to the common values type of situation. But even in Wilson's study, the finding was that the winner may have overestimated the true value. All right. So he uses the example of oil extraction from the earth, and the bidder's bid, in some senses, corresponds with her estimates of how much oil can be extracted. All right. A lot of it is science. A lot of it can be estimated reasonably scientifically, but everybody may not have exactly the same estimate. All right. I might use one group of scientists, another bidder might use something else. And if there is a higher bid than mine, it probably reflects greater optimism about how much oil there is. In such a case, the most optimistic person will win the bid because he or she will bid the highest. Once again, the winner's curse strikes, and Wilson offered the first rigorous theoretical investigation of the winner's curse. All right, saying that it's endemic, it cannot be eliminated if it depends on imperfect knowledge, and knowledge about how much oil there is inside the earth is imperfect. We don't know for certain how much oil will be available. When that is the case, winner's curse inevitably is likely to result. With this, now we have the stage set for Paul Milgram to come into the picture. So we had Vickery, who dealt mainly with private values, private information. We had Wilson, who had studied pure common values. All right. But in an auction where both are present, this is the most general case. All right. And most auctions in the real world can be understood as a combination of private and common values. All right. Um, Please remember that the economists who studied only private values like Vickery or only common values like Wilson were not unaware that both values exist. It's just that the kind of theoretical tools that they were bringing to bear on the problem, they weren't in a position to handle both. In the real world, most auctions for a single object are involve common as well as private values. And Milgram uh, put forward his results. Paul Milgram's main results were that English auctions are probably the best suited when there is private and common information. Why is that the case? Because bids are openly announced. Okay. So I can revise my bids, not just out of my private value, but I try to draw some inference from the bids that others are making. I also look at when other bidders drop out of the bidding process. I learn something from there. So the interdependence is factored in. Common information is inferred from the actions of others. And it's possible that the auctioneer itself might be providing more information, some expert appraisal of say, Tutankhamun's crown, giving authentic information about when it was discovered, how old it is, and so on and so forth. All right. Paul Milgram was of the view that English auctions, in terms of revenue generation, are the best. All right. They are better than the second price auction. All right. In fact, Vickery's approach, even though it is hailed as ingenious, it is also the least used. All right. A lot of people have said that if an individual has volunteered a price of 250, why should we make this person pay only $200? So Vickery's solution, though very clever, doesn't raise enough revenues, and a lot of auctioneers, which might well be the government, in many cases, wants to raise as much revenue as possible. So English auctions are better than second price in terms of revenue raising, and second price auctions are better than Dutch or the sealed bids. All right, because in the Dutch auction, if you remember, the prices come down till they come to a particular level and one person raises his or her hand. Nobody else has revealed anything. So the only time that one gets an understanding of the value of the auction is when somebody says, okay, I will buy it at that price. And the bidding ends over there because the first person to volunteer to pay a price wins the auction. There is no further information revelation. In the sealed bid, all the bids are put in an envelope and handed in. Nobody learns anything. So the English auction and the second price auction are those which generate a lot of information. All right. In addition to private information, it brings in some learning from the actions of others. While in the Dutch case, you just have your private information available. Likewise, with the seal bid. All right. So English auctions generate the best revenue, and Paul Milgram also advised that it's a good idea to provide expert appraisals to the bidders before the auction begins. Help them to revise their valuations. All right, and that will help them to bid more accurately. So the superiority of English auctions that Milgram studied is related to something known as the linkage principle. All right, and it's something that I was stating just now, that wherever bidders are compelled or encouraged or incentivized to reveal more of their private information, more revenues will be generated. All right. So give as much information to the bidders as possible. In addition to their private, let them revise their information from the actions of others. Give them a report on expert appraisals of the object. As they revise their bids and as they revise their private information, chances are they will bid higher and generate more revenue. All right, which doesn't happen with the others. Is there still a chance of winner's curse? Yeah, there is. All right, uh, that doesn't go away. The winner's curse is a danger, is an affliction that cannot be wished away. It will remain. Right. Now, this was the state of auction theory till the beginning of the 1990s. The theory about auctioning off one object at a time, meaning even if you had five Picassos to auction off, they were bid one by one. So my first Picasso didn't necessarily affect my bid on the fourth Picasso. They were essentially all single object auctions. Okay. So that approach of single object auctions under different auction formats and different information settings was more or less complete by the beginning of the 1990s. In 1994, a different kind of need was felt. And this was the telecom revolution that was taking off. The US Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, was starting to auction out the use of spectrum for to telephone companies. Okay. Now, the FCC was not selling a single item, but it was selling a whole range of frequencies. And there was an interdependence, as I'll show you on the next slide. So the attention now shifted from a single object auction to a multiple object auction. Okay. Now, multiple items are unique in themselves, but they have an interdependence. So, for example, an FCC spectrum auction might include a New York license, a Washington license, or a Los Angeles license. If you want to give it an Indian context, it could be a license for the state of Maharashtra and Gujarat, and the third one is West Bengal. All right, far away. Likewise with New York, Washington, and LA. Now, there could be complementarities between the Maharashtra and Gujarat auction, the spectrum, because they are adjoining state. So someone who wants to win Maharashtra might also say, with a little bit of effort, I can also get Gujarat and I can share the infrastructure. The two are adjacent to one another. But I might not believe that there is some similar synergy operating across from Maharashtra to West Bengal. All right. So complementarity between licenses starts to become important. All right. I can give you one more example. It might horrify art lovers, but I'm just doing it as a thought experiment. Instead of selling a Picasso, entire Picasso on its own, hold your breath. Suppose I were to cut it into four parts, okay, and assume that afterwards, if I were to buy those four parts, I can make it as good as new. Now, if they are being auctioned as four parts of the same Picasso painting, I don't have an interest in one part. All right. I need to get all the four parts if I have to have a full Picasso hanging on my wall. So I might be interested in bidding for all of them, and they are interdependent. But somebody else who wants to put a needle in my plan, put a needle in the works, might bid for one of the parts very high and win it, and I might be left with three parts. So my Picasso is incomplete. The other person has played a strategic game out here. So, in this kind of multi items auction where there are complementarities between different licenses, people might play games with one another. They might want to put the other person at a disadvantage. And then the person who bought that fourth Picasso part might say, okay, you want to complete your Picasso, pay me this amount separately. All right. And if I'm that desperate, I will do it. Right. Likewise, I want Washington and New York, but somebody buys up New York and I'm left with only Washington. And the person says, you want New York? I'll give it to you, but you have to pay through your nose for it. Right. So games of strategy start to come into the picture in this multi object type of auctions. This is where the combined contribution of Milgram and Wilson comes into the picture. They developed what is called the simultaneous multiple round auction, the SMRA. So individuals place bids on any number of objects that they want, and the auction goes through multiple rounds. Okay. The chances are that the multiple round may reduce the winner's curse, not eliminate it, may reduce it because at each round, uh, more and more information is revealed. Okay, so the SMRA is an extension of the English auction to multiple items. All the items are sold at the same time. It's not as if we start with New York, then we go to Washington, and then we go to LA and so on. We sell everything at the same time, and bidders may bid on as many items as they wish. There is no compulsion that you got to bid for everything. It starts off by setting prices deliberately low, very low, so that the demand for the objects obviously is much greater than the supply. Everybody shows a willingness to pay. And the second round, you start again with whatever was the winning bid at the previous point. And then people start to bid some more. The auctioneer will announce who has won a particular round and at what price. The highest bid at the end of a round then becomes the starting point for the next round. And this process goes on for numerous rounds till at some point at the start of a round, a bid, the highest bid from the previous one is announced and nobody increases it. And then you say the individual who gave the highest bid at the previous round is the winner. All right. The SMRA also gave a few, sorry, I went in the wrong direction. The SMRA was a resounding success. It raised 20 billion for the US federal government, more than double what it had forecast. But it needed something which forced individuals to bid. And this was what was called the activity rule. For example, a smart bidder might say for the first three rounds, I will bid nothing. I will only observe everybody, learn what they are bidding for, get an understanding of who wants what desperately, and then I will come in and pick up what I want. Now, if everybody behaves that way, there'll be no activity at all. So the auction forced individuals to be active right from the start. All right. So everybody jumps in, everybody goes forward and gives bids. And at some point of time, the highest bidder is left standing, all the others drop out. All right. So the SMRA auction has been used in numerous places, including India. All right. India has used the SMRA format for auctions right from 2010 onwards with varying degrees of success in terms of revenue earned and the distribution of spectrum. If you're interested, here is a look at spectrum auctions in India. It has the amount is in billions of dollars. 50 billion has been raised. Has it avoided the winner's curse? The feeling is it has not. All right. There have been occasions when telecom operators have bid far in excess of what they should have, and after having won a particular circle or a particular area, they found that they overestimated the revenues that they would be able to earn from it, so they had bid far beyond. And then there have been petitions to the government then comes in, changes the rules, all kinds of things have been happening. So none of this is a magic wand that solves the problem. It raises a lot of revenue for the government. About that, there is no question. But does it avoid the winner's curse? The jury's verdict is that it perhaps reduces the winner's curse, but it may not avoid it completely. All right. That is more or less it. This is a partial list of references. That's it for me. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to discuss this if you wish. Oops.
Thank you, sir. Now we will be opening the floor for question and answers. So, Ishita, will you please take the floor?
Sorry,
Thank you, sir. Now we'll be opening the floor for question and answers. So, Ishita, will you please take over?
Good evening, Good evening, everyone. Thank you, sir, for the enlightening session. Now, I'll be handling the Q&A part of the event. So the first question that we have is the improvement to auction theory applicable in case of reverse bidding? If yes, how?
By reverse bidding, I would imagine they mean the Dutch auction, where the prices are gradually lowered. Most of the results, it has been studied, but the works of Milgram especially has indicated that the open bid English auction, where it's bidding upwards, that reveals information the best, and also generates the most revenues. So there is, even though the other auction formats don't disappear, those who are used to, like the Dutch auction for flowers, continue to follow the reverse auction process. But the results of Milgram and Roberts are more in tune with the open bid English auctions.
Okay, sir. Thank you. So our next question is there a winner's curse on a private value auction?
There is. In fact, the contribution of Vickery that I referred to, who first examined the winners. Vickery is essentially a private value model. Even when, say, if you and I or any of us would go for a bid, we go there with some private understanding of the value of that product. All right. And if we want it badly enough, we might go there saying that I'm not going to spend more than 5,000 rupees. All right. But then I find that somebody has matched my bid of 5,000. Now I say, should I push it up by maybe 100 more and see if I get it? Maybe I will. Maybe I bid 5,100 and I win it, and nobody else goes beyond. I've still paid 100 rupees more. You might say, what is 100 rupees when I'm already spending 5,000? But in terms of my initial valuation, I have already paid more. And hence I have overbid. And there is, however small, there is a winner's curse. So the winner's curse will be present. That's where Vickery's contribution was. Stop this excessive optimistic bidding by bringing in the second price to be paid by the winner.
Okay, thank you, sir. Our next question is, can you give us suggestions as to where the improved method can be used in India?
Well, India is using the best auction procedures that are available at the moment. Okay, and nothing can be more complicated, I think, than the auctioning of spectrum, because there are interdependencies that are involved over there. There are synergies when you have adjoining states that you can pick up. So India is using all that, but so in terms of preference revelation or information revelation, the SMRA, which is the Milgram Roberts contribution, is already being used. Okay. The question is, how does one stop the excessive bidding? How does one eliminate the winner's curse? Because as you know, not just in India, but anywhere else, when you have massive big players like telecom companies, when they start to lobby the government does come under pressure. All right. I'm not referring to any particular government. Most governments are open to pressures from lobbies and interest groups. And if they see that if they don't make things easier, the telecom operators might go bankrupt. That is a huge loss. So we have a situation where you have the auction rules, but after the auction you go back and change those rules and say, it's okay, if you're struggling now, we will make things easier for you. All right. So the next thing, if it has to come, and it's very difficult to design auction mechanism that way, how to eliminate, bring to an absolute minimum the winner's curse problem, how to stop the overbidding. And there isn't a solution for that as yet.
Okay, so our fourth question is, what role does government play in designing auction formats?
The government, well, if one goes by what happened in the US, the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, which is a government body, by itself could not have devised these auction rules and auction mechanism, but they were smart enough to know that they didn't know. All right. Now that is something that government regulators need to know, that my knowledge doesn't go beyond this. And they were smart enough to approach Milgram and Wilson that this is what we want to do. How can you devise a mechanism which will solve this problem? So the importance of Milgram and Roberts is not just the theory that they came out with, but they actually came out with a practical auction design specifically for what the FCC wanted. So this is where the academics who work in auction design, auction theory can play a significant role. And the government needs to be open to take this help.
All right, so our last question for today is, can you tell us about some other work of Paul Milgram and Robert Wilson which you found interesting, and why?
To be honest, I have not read too much about Wilson, but about Milgram, he has a fairly accessible book, and of course he's got on behavior of economic organizations. All right, there is an entire branch of economics for which there have been two prior Nobel Prize winners. One was Ronald Coase, who wrote an article sometime in 1930 on, strange as it may sound for economic students, he asked the question, why does a firm exist? All right. The question, if you have done economics, seems absurd, but he gave some pretty cogent reason as to why a firm exists. And then there was a winner more recently by the name of Oliver Williamson, who also contributed to this literature in terms of what is called transactions costs. And Paul Milgram has a book which covers a lot of this material. And I have benefited a lot from reading that work of Paul Milgram.
All right, thank you, sir. With this, we come to the end of our question and answer segment. I would now like to call upon Ms. Sunita to give the vote of thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for such an enlightening lecture. You explained, how this work related to auction began from Vickery's contribution and this very concept of winner's curse, which was basically, developed by Robert Wilson by offering the alternative to the auction format which was proposed by his predecessor. And finally, how Milgram has tried to improvise on the works done by the earlier economist. Thank you so much for such an enlightening talk related to the recent Nobel Prize, which has been awarded in the field of economics. I'm very pleased to inform you that we have come to this session. We have come to an end of the 19th annual Sophia Nobel Oration Series, which commenced on 2nd February 2021. This year, with the support of RUSA project, we could manage to invite eminent scholars from all 6 fields, namely physics, chemistry, physiology, or medicine, literature, peace, and economic sciences. This session was the 6th public lecture organized as a part of the prestigious annual Sophia Nobel Oration Series 2021. It is indeed my pleasure to perform this task of offering a vote of thanks on this occasion. On behalf of the Department of Economics, I express my sincere gratitude to Professor Ajit Karnik for accepting our invitation and delivering today's address. Thank you, sir. You always been a source of inspiration for all your students. I remember my days as PG student of economics at Mumbai University. Students always appreciated your skill of simplifying the most complex, the most difficult ideas so that your audience with little knowledge of the concept can understand. And I'm sure today audience must have experienced that. Thank you, sir. I express heartfelt thank you for taking out time from your extremely busy schedule and making it possible for us to organize a very engaging and interactive session today. The department owes a big thank you to our principal, Dr. Sister Ananda Amritmahal, for giving us this opportunity of organizing this event. She's very kindly made it possible to extend Sophia Nobel Oration Series to include all 6 areas. I would like to thank Dr. Hema Subramaniam, the coordinator of the Sophia Nobel Oration Series, for her cooperation in planning and organizing this program. I also appreciate the help offered by PG students of the Life Sciences Department. The department truly recognizes the efforts put in by the students of the Economics Department in making this program a success. They have really worked hard over the past few weeks. The teams handling technical arrangements, designing of posters, certificates, preparation of PPT, and assisting Q&A session. We really appreciate the efforts. Thank you, students. I thank each one of you who is present here for attending this program and making today's session very interactive through your active involvement. Finally, my colleagues, Dr. Sangeeta Dubey, Head of the Department of Economics, for taking an initiative, and Ms. Nisha Yadav for helping the department in organizing this event. Now, before I hand over proceedings of this session to Dr. Dubey, I once again remind everyone to kindly fill up the feedback form using the link posted on the YouTube chat. You will receive your certificate of participation by an email. Thank you. Over to you, Sangeeta. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sunita, for giving the vote of thanks. Thank you very much, Karnik sir, for enriching us with your lecture. And I'm sure, I just got carried away with your lecture, and I thought maybe we should have an opportunity of listening to you more often. Last but not the least, I would like to thank Dr. Snehal Martin for all her technical support, and the entire streaming of the YouTube event has been possible by her. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. And with this, we come to an end of our today's talk. Thank you, everyone.